Hi, I'm State Representative Henry Yanez. Welcome to the State of Your State, my public affairs show that brings the people of Macomb County news from our state capital. On May 25th, we will stand with veterans and the men and women serving in our armed forces today to celebrate Memorial Day and all those who have given up their lives in the service of their country. We'll remember their sacrifice and the sacrifice made by the families they left behind. And we must also remember that there are veterans today who deserve our thanks, recognition, and assistance. With me today to talk about how we can best serve our veterans is Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency Director Jeff Barnes. And for the second half of our show, Michigan Veterans Trust Fund Director Lindell Holm will be joining us. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you, Representative. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a great pleasure to have you. So listen, Jeff, let's get right into it because, we have a lot of veterans that live in Macomb County, and there's a lot of benefits. And I have found in my work going door to door throughout my district that a lot of these veterans don't even know that they have benefits coming to them. So, let's just start off. If you can tell me a little bit about the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency and are you part of the federal VA?
Well, that's a great question. It's a good place to start. So the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency was created actually just 2 years ago. And before that, all activities around Veterans Affairs were actually headquartered under the Michigan National Guard, which became really difficult for the Guard to be able to do while they were sending troops downrange into harm's way. So the agency is solely focused as a central coordinating point for all veteran activities in the state. And it's a cabinet-level agency. I was appointed to serve by the governor on the cabinet, along with General Vadnais for the military affairs side.
So let's talk a little bit about veterans and the process a little bit. So can your agency help a veteran file a claim with the VA, and do you work directly with the federal agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would start by echoing the sentiment that you began the show with, and that was actually saying that a lot of veterans aren't actually aware of what they're eligible for. As an agency, we do work very closely with the federal VA to sign people up for their federal benefits. There are also some state benefits that are available for our vets. But what we often encounter are veterans, especially of the Vietnam era, who may be eligible for things that they're not aware of. They may be in some advanced stages of disease, and they're rationing meds or foregoing treatment altogether because they're not aware of that. So the way that we will work with a veteran is we come into contact with them. We try to fully assess what they may be eligible for by looking at what time of service they served in, whether they were in combat, if they had any injuries sustained during their service, and then connect them to the disability ratings and the services that are available to them. And as a state, we can offer some additional things outside of the federal VA. You mentioned you're going to have Lindell on in the second half of your show. Some emergency funding like the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund and the Michigan Veterans Homeowner Assistance Program are two things that we have at the state level. And then many of our counties have the Soldier and Sailor Relief Fund Act, which are additional benefits for those veterans that may have some episodic or emergent financial need that we could help them through.
So obviously, in order to get these benefits, and quite often, I think you probably find that sometimes a veteran is in dire need of the benefits when they finally ask for them, and so it's a bit of a scramble to put this together. So what kind of supporting documents does a veteran need to have on hand? I understand there's a document called a DD-214. Can you tell us exactly what kind of documents should a veteran have, and can you explain what a DD-214 is?
Sure, a DD-214, and every military document has some kind of acronym for it. So the DD-214 is essentially the service member's personnel record. It covers things of where they served, their duration of service, their discharge status, what kind of awards they had. But that allows us to start the trail on what they might be eligible for. And then we have to connect that with their health records and other supporting documentation to get them signed up for their federal benefits. But for your constituents, If you don't know where that is, and a lot of folks lose it when they come home, we can help you get connected with that DD-214. And we have a 24-hour day service center at 1-800-MISH-VET, where we'll have a customer service representative that will walk through that process with you, make sure that we get your documents to you in a timely fashion, and then even connect you with a service officer that's close to where you work or live, so that we can get you enrolled in that benefits process as easily as possible.
Yeah, and for my viewers here in Macomb County, we actually have a VA office right here in the county that we pay for through our taxes.
Yes, you do. And Director Laura Rihos is a Air Force alum and veteran. Does an excellent job. And the veterans of Macomb County have great services through that county service office. Yeah. But if you don't know where they're located, you can always call that 1-800-MISH-VET, and we'll get you right back to Laura's office.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I know you briefly touched on some of the benefits, and I know it's a pretty extensive list, but can you give us kind of an example of the benefits that are available to veterans and their families? I know, for instance, there's a burial benefit as well. So could you just kind of cover some of the benefits available?
Sure. There are a lot of benefits that are available to our veterans, and our post-9/11 veterans have a complete portfolio of benefits that are above and beyond what we've seen through previous generations. And I mentioned a lot of times people aren't aware of that, and it's because benefits are added on a consistent basis or the eligibilities expand based on medical research. So I gave the example of the Vietnam-era veteran. They've had over 50 expansions of eligibility in the last 10 years. So if you're not looking back to the VA full-time, you're probably not aware of those things that are available. But starting with the federal VA, you have different benefits that are available for health, for education, such as the GI Bill. There's also the burial allowances for low income. And our veterans who are honorably discharged are eligible for proper military burial rights, but their family members are also able to be buried in national cemeteries as well with them. So there are a lot of different things that are available at the federal level. At the state, there are the emergency funding programs that I talked about. You'll also see a lot of programming around workforce development and career transitioning to help those veterans who might be in between jobs or transitioning in between careers, whether that be the military to civilian or civilian to civilian career transition. We can be there to help.
Yeah, and I was just recently at one of our local Michigan Works office where they have a dedicated veterans program there to help veterans get back to work. And there's nothing like hiring a vet, right? Because they're a trained workforce ready to go.
Absolutely, and our employers really like hiring vets because it's a dependable workforce. They can pass a drug analysis. A lot of them come with their own security clearances already intact. And it's a very mission-oriented, highly adaptive workforce that today's military is extremely skilled and technologically savvy. And so it's a great fit for companies that are in growth mode and can work with that to fit the veteran into their landscape of their workplace.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about, we've all seen the veterans license plates, but I understand now there's also a change in the veteran designation on a driver's license now. Is that correct?
It is. This is a pretty exciting moment for the state because we're in one of the few states that have done this already, which is to add a veteran's designation to a driver's license. And the goal of it is it's completely voluntary and it's free. You will go into the Secretary of State's office during your normal time to get your new driver's license printed, show them your DD-214, and they'll be able to add that designation to your driver's license. So while it does not get you connected to your federal benefits, what it does do is it will make it very easy for you to take advantage of those things that retailers may offer, or restaurants, or some of our Pure Michigan travel destinations that try to offer discounts to veterans.
That's great that you're streamlining that for our veterans. Let's talk a little bit about housing. You know, a couple years ago, we passed a law here that actually helped veterans who are 100% disabled get a tax break. And I currently have a bill in that will help those who rent and or lease as well. What are some of the other housing assistance programs that are available to veterans?
Well, the federal VA offers a housing loan where a veteran can use that up front, and it does not require a down payment for housing. There are also some of the long-term options that I mentioned earlier with the Michigan Veterans Homeowners Assistance Program. That program funding is meant to help veterans who may be going through the foreclosure process and be able to work through it, to be able to keep them in their home or to get them back into a home. And then you have some housing options for long-term care at the state. We have 2 long-term care facilities, the Jacob Betty, which is in Marquette, and the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans in Grand Rapids. Those 2 facilities are available. And for our 70 to 100% service-connected, disability-rated veterans, that's federal rating, they can live at those facilities at no cost.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yes.
It's another great benefit for not only the veterans but the veterans' family as well.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit though about sometimes veterans come back from the service and life can be pretty tough for them. And we do occasionally have a veteran that comes in contact with the justice system. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on today in courts with veterans? I understand there's some special courts.
Yes. So what we learned from the Vietnam population is nearly 1 in 3 ended up into contact with the criminal justice system. And this is an area that I think we've made a lot of headway on based on those lessons learned. As a state, we have 22 veteran treatment courts and tracks. And what those are essentially to align all of the services that are available in the local community to wrap around that veteran and help them get on the right path. Because they come back, they make simple mistakes, and those mistakes end up to loss of employment, maybe some damage to their personal relationships and their finances, and then it puts them on the wrong path. If we can intervene early on and provide some of the services that might be behavioral health services in nature, or some of the supportive housing, supportive job training and career transition, we get them on the right path very quickly. And a good news story for Michigan is we actually have, with the 22 veteran treatment courts, one of the highest number of veteran treatment courts in the country. So Michigan's actually on the leading edge on this, and very low recidivism rates from this program.
And that's great. Again, it's not only a great benefit to the veteran, but it's also a great benefit to the family as well. And quite often that we lose focus on the veteran's family, but certainly the family is impacted by everything that happens with the veterans. So that's a great program, and I'm really glad we're working on making sure that veterans who have slid off the track a little bit are put back on the right track. So kind of staying along that same topic, I want to talk a little bit about we have a Veterans Crisis Hotline, and before we get into that, I do want to go ahead and give out the number. That hotline number is 1-800-273-8244, and if you dial that number 1-800-273-8244 and press 1, you'll get through. And you can also text the Veterans Hotline Service at 838-255. So can you just give us a little background on the Veterans Hotline?
Yeah, the Veterans Hotline is operated by the federal VA, and it's manned 24 hours a day, so that whenever the crisis arrives, it can be taken care of immediately. For your viewers, if they can't remember that, they can call the 1-800-MISH-VET, and they'll be able to get connected to that immediately. Obviously, if they remember the number, we want them to call that first, so that we can handle it most expediently for them. But that's to provide those emergency services and then connect back into what we have in the support structure in the community to make sure they're taken care of once they're stabilized. Our goal, however, is to make sure that we identify those needs well before we get to the crisis point.
Sure.
And with that, that's why we want people to use the hotline that we have set up. It's also we've tried to make things easy with our MichiganVeterans.com to look at all of the services that are available in the state, to be able to connect with a service officer early in your transition process. And those information points are all listed to where your community is. So you can find things that are convenient to you where you work and live and your daily commute patterns to be able to help that. And we always reach out to families because your points are very salient in that. The family sometimes are the early warning device or the people that actually bring the veteran in to receive the treatment. And once that happens and the veteran actually identifies for the treatment, we want to make sure that we get them that.
Yeah, Jeff Barnes, I cannot thank you enough for coming in here today and talking about veterans' benefits and issues. And you guys do a great job, and we really, it's an honor to be able to support not only your program, but to support the veterans throughout the state of Michigan. I just want to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much.
And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Lindell Holm of the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund.
All of us want to make a difference. As veterans, we committed to protect our country. We served and sacrificed for the things that mattered most. Those experiences shaped our lives, even if it isn't always obvious to those around us. And now that we've served, our commitments have taken on a new meaning. We're husbands, wives, parents, friends, and neighbors. But sometimes we still feel alone. We forget that our biggest challenge can be to ask for support when we need it. The Veterans Crisis Line is here for all veterans, service members, and their loved ones. Dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. Chat online at veteranscrisisline.net or text 838-255. It matters.
See these hands? They grip the wheel of a Humvee in Afghanistan.
These hands? 6 years treating soldiers.
12 years flying choppers.
My hands? They're here for the person who fought in Afghanistan. I made the call and got support for my sister.
My hands are here for the person who treated those soldiers. I helped connect my son with the care he's earned.
Mine take care of the person who flew those helicopters. And if life gets overwhelming, they're ready to dial the Veterans Crisis Line.
The Veterans Crisis Line is here for all veterans and their loved ones. Call 1-800-273-8255 and press 1 or chat online at veteranscrisisline.net.
And welcome back to the State of Your State. I'm State Representative Henry Yanez, and joining me in the second half is Lindell Holm. Lindell is the director of the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. Thanks for joining me here today, Lindell.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Hey, so let's talk a little bit about the Veterans Trust Fund. I think it's something that's probably not very well known about when it comes to veterans issues. So give me a short history of the Veterans Trust Fund.
Well, first of all, state of Michigan, very fortunate to have a program like the Trust Fund. There's only a handful of states that have anything like this. So in 1946, with all the returning World War II era veterans returning from the war, the state of Michigan, the legislature set aside $50 million into a trust fund, and the interest and the earnings off of that trust fund funds the emergency grant program, which is there to provide short-term financial assistance to wartime era veterans.
Well, and the trust fund is run by who?
It's run by the Board of Trustees, which is 7 board members appointed by the governor. They represent, 3 are independent, and they do not represent the veteran service organizations, but the remaining 4 do. The DAV, VFW, American Legion, they all have a permanent seat on the Board of Trustees, and then there's a 4th seat for a rotating membership. Currently it's held by the Marine Corps League. The trust fund also accepts donations in addition to the earnings and so forth. And we've got a great relationship with the Forgotten Eagles. They've donated tens of thousands of dollars to the trust fund over the years. Great relationship there. In 2014, we assisted 2,157 veterans, and we gave out $2.5 million in grants. So It was a great program, great benefit for Michigan veterans.
Well, that's fantastic. It really is. And it's nice to know that the veterans have someone they can turn to, especially in an immediate time of crisis, correct?
Yeah.
So is it only veterans that can access the trust fund, or can family members access the trust fund for the veteran? How does that work?
Okay. Well, eligibility for the trust fund is you have to have 180 days of wartime era service. So of the Michigan veterans, 2/3 of them are actually eligible for the trust fund. But you have to have that 180 days of wartime service, or you have to have an Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. And if a service member was medically discharged, so he didn't get his 180 days of wartime service, if he has at least 1 day of wartime service, then he would be eligible. If he has the other condition being that he needs to have an honorable discharge. So the spouse or an unremarried widow or widower of a veteran, of an eligible veteran, or dependent child of an eligible veteran, they may also apply to the trust fund.
Yeah, and you just mentioned a widower. We sometimes forget that women. There's a lot of women veterans as well.
Yes, becoming more and more female veterans. Yes.
So I know you touched on it very briefly about some of the benefits from the trust fund or some of the assistance. Can you go into a little more in depth of what a typical request is for assistance from the trust fund?
Well, the criteria is it has to be an unforeseen, short-term emergency financial need. So the criteria would be that if we give this grant, that the situation is resolved and the veteran can carry on his financial obligations. So a lot of times it might be a veteran who needs to get to work, but his car breaks down. If we repair his car, he's able to sustain himself, maintain his job, get to work, and so forth. We've had some harsh winters in the past, so heating bills have been a little bit higher than expected. We've been able to help out some veterans with that as veterans get older, become retirement income, and so forth. They have less viable ability to adjust to increasing expenses like that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
The trust fund can step in.
Yeah, no, that's a great asset for a lot of these people who just you never know when trouble strikes, and you might get caught short, especially when the economy is bad like it was a few years back. And it's great that veterans have an option to reach out to the trust fund. So veterans that have already accessed the trust fund, but if they need additional assistance, what are some of the other resources available to them?
Well, there are. We have the 1-800-MISH-VET number, which Jeff addressed there, and that's a great resource because we have staff that can help the veteran and guide them to other resources that they're entitled to as a Michigan citizen. It may or may not be veteran specific. So we try to guide them to those types of resources, and there are many programs. So we try to take advantage of all of them, and the philosophy we operate by at the MVAA is no wrong door. Mm-hmm. So if the trust fund is not able to assist, well, we'll try and get you to someone who can assist.
Yeah, and that no wrong door policy I think is great for veterans, only because it resolves a lot of the frustration that I think veterans used to feel about where they would get turned down and or get redirected, and it was I think a lot of veterans I talked to felt frustrated. And now this new policy that the state has developed, the no wrong door policy, has been a great benefit to a lot of veterans. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, and so the MVA has definitely taken a lot of steps to try and make that a reality, make Michigan the most veteran-friendly state in the union, and they've gone organizing the veterans community action teams throughout the state, and really trying to get the community out there aware so that we know where we can get assistance for veterans and not just turn people away, but actually get them connected to where they can find those resources.
So walk us a little bit through the process. We talked a little bit about, with Jeff about what kind of paperwork you need to have on hand in case you have to apply for a benefit. What kind of documents does someone need to apply for the trust fund? I know you talked about some of the criteria, but tell us a little bit about what documents you need to have, and does it have to be done over the phone, by mail? Can they do it online? How do they access it?
Well, currently the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund, it's accessible in every county in the state. So you would need to find your local trust fund agent, and if you need help finding out, getting the contact information for that agent, you can call that 1-800-MISH-VET, or you could also go to the www.michiganveterans.com, and it's also, there's a map on there. You can click on that and find the exact contact information for the trust fund agent. You'd schedule an appointment to go in and fill out the application. It's on paper right now. We're working at trying to get it on online application as well, but currently it's all done on paper. Go in, fill out your application with the trust fund agent, conduct a short interview, and then there's a local county committee which would meet, and they would decide on the application. They can grant up to $1,500 at the county level. If they recommend approval for an amount greater than $1,500, then that would come up to the State Board of Trustees, which meets once a month, and the State Board of Trustees would review that, and they would make a determination above that level.
Yeah, so that leads me into my next question. Typically, how long does it take for a veteran to hear back about the request for help?
Well, it can happen actually rather quickly, especially in the smaller counties. You can have a pretty rapid turnaround, 1 to 2 days possibly, but more likely, plan for a week or two for the county committee to make a decision.
Yeah.
And then once, if it has to be sent up to the State Board of Trustees, it could take longer. It could take up to 3-4 weeks.
3-4 weeks.
Okay.
So what happens though if a request is denied? Is there help for the veteran to try to direct them into a different office or location to get some help?
Well, we would, from the trust fund, we would refer them into that 1-800-MISH-VET number, our resource center, because they do have all the connections. They're connected with 211, so they have all this, not only the federal, but also the state and local resources where they can help that veteran and try to put them in touch. If there's a program that the veteran is eligible for, we'll put them in touch with that.
And that 211 number that you mentioned is a number that's run through the United Way, if I'm correct, and everybody can access that number if they need help. So
correct.
Not just veterans, but their family and the average person can also
correct.
access that number.
And our resource center is tied into that. So if there's any veteran-specific issues, then our resource is there to supplement 211.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
What are the board members looking at when they're trying to make a decision about whether to accept or deny a request from a veteran?
Well, again, the one of the big criteria is it unforeseen, is it an emergent need, and will the grant resolve the situation? Yeah. If it's a long-term situation where maybe a grant would simply delay things for a month or two, then that's not really something that the trust fund is designed to resolve. We need to try and get that veteran into another resource that will provide a more of a long-term situation or solution rather. So what they do look at income, they do look at expenses, and they want to see that the veteran, if we provide this assistance, will the veteran be able to take it and maintain their financial obligations from that point forward.
Oh. So the Veterans Trust Fund is just another benefit that the veterans here in our state have, and it's one of many benefits that we have throughout the state and tied into the federal VA. Is that correct? And the federal VA office is located where?
Well, they've got offices all over the country. Of course, Detroit is the big regional office. So just down the road.
The big regional office, okay.
Yep.
That's great. And you mentioned, so for veterans who aren't watching, or for people who are watching that aren't veterans, can you explain very briefly, we use the term VSO, can you explain how that system works through the VFW, what a VSO is, and the groups that they work through?
The veteran service officers work in, they're chartered through a number of different organizations, commonly through the veteran service organizations such as the VFW, DAV, and so forth. But the state of Michigan also has a few, 5 on their staff as well, and they will help veterans submit their claim to the federal VA for disability compensation. That's being the most common one.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're new to this job. Can you give us a little bit about your background? Where'd you come from?
Well, I've been in this position for just over a year now, and I retired after, before that I was in the Marine Corps. I retired after 25 years in the Marine Corps. I was a helicopter pilot, and so this is a great job, going from taking care of Marines to now taking care of veterans in the state of Michigan. It's a great job, great mission.
And you get out throughout the state and talk to veterans?
Yes, I do. I've really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Listen, Lindell, I cannot thank you enough, not only for the work that you did as a Marine, but for the work you're doing now for all the veterans across the state of Michigan. It's all greatly appreciated, especially here not only in the state of Michigan, but during this Memorial Day weekend. So thank you very much, and I want to thank you for tuning in and watching the State of Your State. I'm State Representative Henry Yanez, and until next time, we'll see you later.